Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to episode 136 of NerdPod Generations. As always, I'm one-year illustrious host Steve Taylor, along with the lovely Al Jetsam. Hello, sir.
Hello, friends and enemies.
It's good to see you, buddy.
Oh, we're making it through, man.
We are making it through. It's been a content-filled week for me, though.
It's been a heavy week, just in general for me. I've just like a lot of stuff going on, a lot of things for work, getting things ready, in-laws leaving, just a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff going on.
It's crazy. You know, life's nuts.
It comes at you fast.
But luckily, there are shows like this.
Yes.
For us to forget about our week, and for others to forget about their week when they listen to it.
You know how they say you need to hit REM? Because that's when your brain starts actually taking apart the actions of the day and kind of putting them together. That's the show for us. There's kind of this like fugue state of just we talk and then we get to the end and we're like, oh, I feel better.
Yes, this is REM. This is 1000% REM. And it should be REM for all of you folks. And if you have never listened to us before, please go back and listen to our back catalog. We have 135 previous episodes of pure gold. Also, you can find us on youtube.com under NerdPod Generations, and we now have a website, nerdpodgen.com. That is nerdpodgen.com. You can go on that website. You can see more about Al and myself. You can contact us. You can let us know about likes, dislikes, whatever about our show. But also there are links to all of our shows, all of our personal projects and websites. So please go to the website. Check us out.
King Steve getting it done for all you.
It took freaking a million years, but I finally figured it out.
You got it done.
Finally figured it out. All right, so we got a big show, folks. I start every show off with what have you been watching, playing, reading.
Do you want me to tag in since you got kind of like a lily pad situation, or do you want to do your hopping?
I was thinking maybe we start with, because I think my final of the 4 movies I want to bring up might take a little bit.
Okay.
So why don't we start with the trailers and then the one movie that you were going to
So let's start with trailers, because we just need to make a quick stop at the trailer park, and it's prescient given what I'm going to talk about afterwards.
Yes.
Where trailers aren't a big element, but you would think that they would be somehow. So we did want to touch on 2 specific trailers, because you still haven't seen the Alien Romulus trailer, have you?
Oh, no, I saw it.
You saw it? Okay. So I wouldn't mind also just just glancing off that, because I think it's interesting. It's just back to basics, but you take Alien and you just put the amount of xenomorphs in from Aliens, and it's like, and we have a new Alien movie. It's exactly the same as the first Alien, but now there's a lot of aliens on the ship.
Which I think is a problem, but we'll talk about that.
Yeah, so I think that's interesting. Do you want to start with the good or the bad?
We gotta start with Transformers 1.
Oh, boy.
God, it's terrible.
I saw the internet hyped up over this. Or maybe it was just the internal hype that the studio was pumping into the internet bowels. But it seemed like a lot of people were talking about it this week. This looks terrible, man.
This looks really bad.
This looks like new levels of bad. Like, I was shocked that it looked as bad as it does.
Once again, I don't quite understand what they're going for here.
No.
Because it's, like, the thing I've always appreciated about Transformers, going back to the original cartoon, is it wasn't a joke.
No.
Like, they never played it off as a joke. Even when they had the Transformers and G.I. Joe combined.
Yeah.
Still wasn't played as a joke. And this is just goofy.
Well, and that's the key, isn't it, Marvel? Is that if you don't take it seriously, we won't take it seriously. And, damn it, nerds are passionate for a reason. They take this shit seriously. So please and thank you if you would just stop fucking around. No, I saw this, and I was just shocked at every decision that they made. From the fact that the animation looks worse than some Transformers TV shows.
This was like barely better than Beast Wars, and if for those of you who have not watched Beast Wars,
it's bad.
OG computer animation is really bad, and this is just a little better.
This is only a little better. The faces look terrible.
Horrible.
Just terrible. The writing is awful. The writing is awful. Top to bottom, it's bad. Every line, you know exactly what it's going to be and what's going to happen, and you're just like, ugh. That's the overall reaction to every line of dialogue I had in that entire thing is, ugh.
And what we were talking about with the whole Marvel comedy humor thing, it's directed by Josh Cooley, who all of his previous work has been Disney.
Mm-hmm.
So even though this is not a Disney movie, you could tell he's bringing that sensibility to it.
Yeah.
Which is just...
Well, even Disney takes things more seriously than this. There's some hard moments in Frozen and Moana and Wreck-It Ralph and a bunch of other Disney movies. You're like, damn, son. But, this looks terrible. terrible.
And then the trailer, I was like, is this Taika Waititi? Because they had to play Start Me Up by
They had
the Rolling Stones.
some fun song in the background, and it was like just it's classic hype train. And except it reminds me a lot of the Emoji Movie, where you have all these classic hype train moments of like, this is what we're doing, get hype, kids. And instead it has the exact opposite effect, where you're just like, damn, this looks like shit.
Yeah.
This looks awful. But instead of it being the Emoji Movie, which like we all knew was going to be a shit pile, it's a Transformers movie, and it just looks awful.
Yeah.
And like, why are you doing Transformers if you're gonna invent an entirely new story? Like, I don't.
Yeah, I don't get that either.
New canon and new everything. Cybertron is completely different. The biology or mechanism, whatever you want to call it, for the biomechanisms of the Transformers are different. You now have to have a special part in order to transform, and you don't scan something, you just transform into a thing. Whereas like Beast Wars, the reason they're animals is because that's what they were able to scan. As they scanned animals, they have animal bodies now. The trucks and vehicles, that the reason they did that was because that was what they scanned. That's always been the canon. And now, no, never mind. That's not the canon. And also, there's this weird children's Cronenberg, my body is transforming and I don't know how to stop it.
Yeah.
And I hate it.
It was dumb. And
I hate it.
for those of you who don't know, Cybertron is a 100% metal world.
Yeah.
Where is the flora and the fauna coming from in this movie? Like, it's like, why are there trees and bushes and flowers and plants?
Yeah.
Unless they like go to a moon opposite Cybertron and that's where they are. If this is all taking place on Cybertron, that's even more of a slap in the face. Because it's like, that is not what Cybertron is.
Oh, and then we're gonna do the classic. The two arch enemies used to be best friends.
Besties, yeah.
I fucking hate it.
And the three lead actors are all Marvel alum. You got Chris Hemsworth as Orion Pax / Optimus Prime, Brian Tyree Henry as D16, aka Megatron, and then Scarlett Johansson as Alita 1. It's like,
yeah.
Okay, so you got Thor, the dude from the Eternals, and Black Widow,
yeah,
voicing the main three characters.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
No, the everything about this looks bad. The writing looks bad. I guess the writing sounds bad would be a better, more apt way to put it. The animation looks terrible. Both sides of the animation. You always have two elements to animation. You have the actual design and you have the animation. Both are bad.
Yep.
The animation is bad. Everything moves in a bad way. Nothing looks realistic or like it has actual weight or effect. And then the design of everything looks like shit to begin with.
Yeah.
So you're just fucked. You're just totally fucked. And I saw this and I was just shocked at how bad it could be.
And like the part that confused me also is when they meet Sentinel Prime, which is voiced by John Hamm, he gives them all what looks like the matrix of leadership, which Optimus and whoever runs the Autobots keeps in their chest.
Yeah.
But they all get it, which gives them the potential to transform now. That didn't make...
And they can't transform before that. They have to have this piece added to them before they can transform. Like, all of this is bullshit new canon.
It's insane.
It's like you have, what, over 30 years of canon at this point? And you were like, we're going to make a Transformers movie, but only in the sense that there's going to be characters that are by name and image recognizable, not in terms of tone or in any way that they talk or move or act. None of that. Simply just like Optimus Prime will look enough like Optimus Prime that you'll be like, that's Optimus Prime. Scrap all of the character, all the canon, all the lore, all of the mechanized biology, whatever you want to call it, all the ways that things happen. You know, it just... So why make a Transformers movie then, dude? Like, what's the point of that? Why go through all this trouble and make a Transformers movie if you're just going to bullshit all the canon away anyway? Then just make something that's not Transformers. Make GoBots. This would be funnier as a GoBots movie than as a Transformers movie.
And the part that's the saddest about this is when this comes out, it'll be 2 years off of 40 years since Transformers the movie, the animated one from 1986, came out. And that looks 1,000 times better than this. And it was 40 fucking years ago.
I can't get over how bad everything about the animation is.
Terrible.
I just can't get over it. Like,
well, and like you said, though, it's the story and the writing is real. Because I've seen things with bad animation, but they had a good story and that you kind of give it a pass. But this you're like, I don't like. It's not funny. Like Bumblebee gets laser swords coming out of his
and then
hands.
he accidentally starts cutting people in half,
Yeah,
and terrorizing people.
And it's like, no.
Oh, I have a face helmet now. I hate this.
It's so dumb.
I hate all of this. It just none of it makes any sense, and it looks like the worst kind of writing out there. You know, it looks like Stuart Little 3-level writing.
My hope is that
good.
It bombs, and that we don't get another sequel. Because it's like, okay, we all understand the Michael Bay movies were terrible. They kind of.
The first one set the table.
Rebounded a little bit with the last one that came out, The Rise of the Beasts or whatever it was.
It was okay. Better.
It was better than all of the previous Michael Bay movies.
But it also reset the entire canon.
Yes.
Like, this is another thing, is that Transformers just keeps resetting their canon.
Yes.
And, like, look at the X-Men and understand that this is not a sustainable model to go after. No. You can't just keep resetting your canon every time you have a new idea or something doesn't work out as much as you thought, or you want to try something different. You have to stick to your plan or not come out with a different movie every 3 years.
Agree. What Transformers needs is to scrap all the movies. No more movies. Reboot, restart as an animated show on Netflix or wherever.
Yeah.
Start at the beginning like we did in the past. Do an animated show, build it up properly, and then roll it into movies.
Do that fun thing that I love that Marvel can do, where you take things that weren't a thing then and you now introduce them. So you look at, like, I'm looking at some of the X-Men TV shows that have come out, not 97 specifically, but some of the older ones, where you have characters and storylines where in the original X-Men 94 that couldn't happen because that character didn't exist. That character wasn't a thing. That, you know, the relationship between Deadpool and Cable wasn't the established relationship that it is now. So, like, when they go through and they make a new version of the X-Men, they can now touch on some of these storylines that weren't even around. So now you can do Transformers and do, like, the Dinobots earlier on in the story, have them be included earlier on as a more prominent role instead of this special thing they have to wait 3 seasons to get to. You know, like, you can do interesting things, and you're not. One of the things that's most disappointing about this to me is that I think an animated Transformers movie is a great idea.
Oh, it needs to be animated.
But this looks terrible. This sounds terrible. The writing is awful. Everything about it is bad. Even the voice acting is so nothing. It's just the most flat voice acting you've ever heard.
Yeah, and this goes back to the whole, you know, just because they're big names doesn't mean they're good voice actors.
No.
And I love Chris Hemsworth, Scarlett Johansson, pretty much all of them.
Out of the Chris's, checking in on the 10-year Chris project. Of the 4 Chris tubes we have set up, the Pratt is broken and dead.
Done.
Nobody should tap the Pratt anymore.
No.
It's gone.
Done.
Hemsworth, I think, is running a little low.
He's running low.
He's getting a little low. We'll see how Mad Max comes along and if that helps. But, like, right now,
because of the nose, I think he's going to be out.
It's gonna be a little low. Evans has walked away a little bit. He makes a project like once every year. He did
Ghosted and The Gray Man, or not The Gray Man. What's the?
It is The Gray Man. Yeah.
That was yeah. He did those 2 movies and they were not.
They weren't that good. But he also isn't making like 6 movies a year, which all suck. Chris Pratt. And then you have Chris Pine, who still makes great movies every time he goes out and does anything.
And really, my favorite Chris movie that has come out in the last 5-6 years. Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah. And it's like, that's on the top of the pedestal. Good old Chris Pine. And I really hope, because I don't want to see him do this character anymore, I hope they scrap they keep going back and forth on doing the 4th and final Star Trek and the J.J. Abrams universe.
Yeah.
I hope they just scrap it. Like, listen, you were fine as Kirk. Just scrap it. Yeah. Move on to other things. I don't want to see you as Kirk anymore. Make another D&D movie.
I'm perfectly happy with Star Trek Beyond being the end of that whole saga.
Yeah, it's a
perfectly cromulent
especially
ending.
with Chekhov dying in real life.
Yeah,
it's like, dude,
I think it's time to walk away from that. I think it's time to let that lay.
Because why would you recast that character?
I'd be more interested in Quentin Tarantino's maybe Star Trek, maybe not Star Trek, maybe canon, maybe not canon. Whatever that is, if it ever happens, because I haven't heard anything about it since like 2019, so I don't think it's gonna happen. No. But like, I'd be more interested in that than another of the, what do they call it, the 09 or the Calvin universe or whatever it is.
Which is
some stupid name for it.
God, you know what? That was a movie kind of like Forrest Gump with me, where I first saw it, I loved it. Mm-hmm. And then the more I watched it, the more I saw the cracks in the armor. And I'm like...
That's so interesting to me because I also... That Star Trek was one of my first like real experiences with the OG crew. I had watched some of Next Gen and a few things here and there, but that was by and large, because that was 2009. That was one of the first times I sat down and actually watched a Kirk and Spock adventure. And to have... Because like I'd seen the movies. I'd seen Wrath of Khan, obviously, and I think I had seen Search for Spock.
Okay.
I might not have even seen Search for Spock. I might have just seen Wrath of Khan.
Okay.
And so I came in, and this is like the next thing that I see, and I'm like, oh, it's all of these takes on that OG feels. So like you see all the references that they're doing, but they turn left instead of right, and I kind of really dug that. And then Into Darkness came out, and it was just like, fuck. Shit.
Fucking RoboCop and a rogue spaceship. What the hell's going on?
Yeah, teleporting across the galaxy.
Like, to me, this is so off topic, but to me, if they want to continue doing movies for Star Trek, I think they need to take the Strange New Worlds crew and either have them do movies or reboot it. Like, I know there's been talk about doing movies starting from when Kirk and Spock first met each other. But that, Strange New Worlds unfortunately kind of screwed up that.
I would rather do Strange New Worlds as its own movie series. You know what would even be more fun is you take the cast of Strange New Worlds, and as like a spin-off, you do each of the Star Trek movies, so it's like a pitch of the same plot, and you see what the new writers and actors and what they can do with that same plot. And so like there are some fundamental things that are the same, but there's also some stuff that's different in between, and you can kind of fix things like going back in time to save the whales. You can try and find a new way to do that isn't as... Do we want to say ridiculous?
We're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
That's one of my watch play reads.
So I did want to mention really quick, anybody who hasn't seen it yet, there's a trailer for the new movie Pool Man. Well, we talked about Chris Pine.
Okay.
Which I think looks really fun and interesting. It's one of those accidental spies.
He's
just a hippie weed guy who cleans pools in LA.
He pulls off that look so good.
Yeah.
So good.
And then we wanted to talk on Trap. Just real hot.
Which, Josh Hartnett got a bad rap.
He's making a bit of a comeback in his 40s at this point.
Once again, for those who have not seen the show Penny Dreadful, where he plays the Wolfman, he's really good. Like, I've started to get back onto that. He had his heyday. I think Lucky Number 11 is a very underrated movie with him and Bruce Willis.
That's a good cast, too.
It's a really good cast.
I think Morgan Freeman's in that, too.
Yeah, it just had a weird name, and it was kind of... out there, but I enjoyed it. Yeah, it's an M. Night Shyamalan potential comeback.
Yeah, he's been coming back off and on for a little bit now.
But yeah, I liked Split a lot, but then he fucked it up with Glass.
Yeah, exactly. He went to the bank, and everybody's like, "Oh shit, Split! Here, let's give you some nerd cred." Yeah, and he was like, "Great." Let me spend this immediately.
Oh, and
you're like, bummer, dude. So like, now you got to prove yourself again. So, like, we'll see. We'll see if this works. I find it interesting that in the trailer it's listed as part of the M. Night Shyamalan universe. I don't know what that means either. Does that mean that all the movies are somehow connected? Because then I have a lot of questions about that alien invasion that happened that one time.
Well, and then also, why is the lady in the water also the girl in the village?
Yeah.
It's like, come on. Yeah. You can't have it in the same universe, man.
So, like, I end up having questions more than anything else. Bruce Willis is apparently a ghost and unbreakable. Yeah. So, how are you going to figure that out?
That's how you get reincarnated. Yeah. It's unbreakable.
Yeah. So, but I think Trap looks really interesting.
It does.
It's basically like, even in the trailer while we were watching, I was like, oh, so he's the murderer. I'm like, there's no, I don't think they even try and play it off like he's not.
No.
The entire time.
They do it for like a hot minute.
At the very beginning. But even at the very beginning when he's asking the guy like, hey, what's going on with all the police? Yeah. And the guy's like, oh, there's a killer here. You're like, oh, he's the killer. Yeah. Like the twist is like he's the killer. But it doesn't look like it. It looks like it's the cerebral element of him trying to figure out how he's going to get out of this trap while also checking on other projects that are going on.
Which would be... It would be refreshing to have the M. Night Shyamalan twist just be known. Yeah. Like, here's the twist. It's not like a typical action movie where it's the hero trapped in there with the daughter. It's the villain who's the father trapped in there with the police. Yeah. How is he going to get out? Is he going to get out? What's going to happen with the daughter? I don't want there to be a stupid twist at the end now. It's like, okay, now this is a unique take on this story. Don't fuck it up.
The twist is the same as from Trick or Treat, where you see Dylan Baker kill the neighborhood kid.
Oh, God.
And he's then explaining to his son, and you're like, oh my God, he's going to kill the son. And then the son starts turning the head into a jack-o'-lantern, and you're like, oh, the son's in on it too.
I would bet $50 that you just nailed exactly what the twist.
The daughter's in on it,
which would make sense that he's got a guy locked up in his basement who's yelling. So the daughter's got to know. Oh, that's it. Yeah. You just nailed it.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck.
Now we don't need to see it.
Now we don't need to see it because we know what's going to happen. The daughter's going
to kill some guy at the last minute and help her dad get out. There's going to be some police officer that's tailing him the entire time. He's going to corner him at the very last minute. And then the daughter's going to come out and be like, don't hurt my daddy. Stab in the gut. Mm-hmm. Good job, kid. Let's go.
Or, like, what if she's the main killer and he just helps her?
He just kind of helps her. She's the actual killer.
See, that's the shitty thing about M. Night Shyamalan.
Yeah.
It's become so predictable that I'm dead serious. I think that's what it's going to be. I think we just spoiled the movie before anyone has seen the trailer, really.
Yeah.
Jeez.
We're like, go watch this trailer for this movie. Also, here's the twist ending. We think.
You're too smart, Al. You're too smart for M. Night Shyamalan.
I've been told by a lot of people that I should write movies. I just need someone to come along and actually give me the opportunity.
I know.
I swear to the gods, I have a plan to fix Spider-Man. How crazy am I? I have 2 plans to fix Spider-Man. I have one where it's just what I would do if I was given free reign. And I have one where it's like, okay, I have to play in the MCU sandbox. Fine. Let me fucking fix this place for 5 fucking minutes and get it back on track.
Well, that's the thing is I don't know if you necessarily have to be the screenwriter. You have to be the fixer.
Yeah.
Like they say, here's the script. Okay, let me fix this.
Let me get my red pen out. This is bad. 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 You should not do this. Get this line out of here.
Yes.
Spider-Man can jump 500 feet in one leap. I'm just saying, if you get stuck on a golf course, it's not that big a deal. Get it the fuck out of here.
Yes.
What the fuck is he driving a car for? Why the fuck is this happening?
And that's a movie we're not going to be talking about today.
Yeah.
All right. So let's go on to your big watch.
So going from the trailer park to Roadhouse 89. I actually sat down. I was going to watch the other one, which I keep on thinking is called The Hand That Rocks the Cradle. That's a fully different movie. The Long Kiss Goodnight is what you keep on mentioning. But
The Hand That Rocks the Cradle is still a great movie.
Yeah.
Messed up movie, but great movie.
I finally sat down and watched the original Roadhouse.
Which is, did I not tell you, it is the quintessential 80s action movie cliche.
Everything is cliche.
Everything is cliched.
Well, like, everything is to the nines.
Yes.
The thing is that it gets so far in the weeds at times.
Yes.
The one that I mentioned to Kelly, because like I came into it knowing a few things, right? I'd seen some of the fight scenes. I know that he is the best bouncer in the business, whatever the fuck that means.
He's a cooler, not a bouncer.
It means nothing either way. You know how much it doesn't matter because it doesn't mean anything either way.
Anything.
So I knew like a few things coming in that some of the stuff was a little hairy, a little weird. Some of the hair was a little hairy too.
Oh my God.
We'll get to that.
Patrick Swayze was just a beautiful man in that movie. It's so tough to take him serious.
If you say so, I'm gonna have to take your word for it.
Well, not the mullet, but just like, you know, the.
See, all I can look at is the mullet.
Mullet is crazy.
Him and Kelly, what's her name? I can't.
remember. Kelly Lynch.
Yeah, there were so many points where I was just like, you know what would be great right now is if you both took all of the product out of your hair, because not only would you both be able to be taken more seriously, but also the ozone of the earth would thank you, because I think this is like a hairspray level of hairspray situation where you just have can after can after can.
And the messed up part is the Kelly Lynch hair. I still see it.
Oh yeah.
And at Wegmans, and I'm like, that hair has not been a thing for 30 years. No. What are you doing?
No, it's bad. It's bad. Just some weird choices. The Sam Elliott role was interesting to me.
He's my favorite part of the whole movie. Wade Garrett.
That's such a
his intro scene.
That was a lot.
But he breaks his knees. It hurt, doesn't it?
Yeah. No, like, but it was just so interesting having him there because you knew he was fodder.
Yes.
It was fun actually seeing a male character get fridged. That was fun.
Yep.
Of like, the fodder's here. He's gonna die. I thought that the townspeople were really interesting. I thought that the bar people were really interesting. I found a lot of elements of it good. Like, I really love the band in this, how it's just the one band instead of this kind of rotation of bands, which I do like in the new Roadhouse too. I like that too, that's this rotation. But here you have this really good band with this blind singer, and it's really compelling. He's actually a really good actor.
And Jeff Healey was a legit blues artist who I think he's passed since.
Yeah, but he's really compelling. He's a really good actor.
Yeah, he died at 41, which sucks.
Just all the hair. I can't get over, like, even Sam Elliott looks ridiculous with this giant mop of hair. I love that he ties it back at times, and it's still only half tied back. You have fucking Emmett Sunshine Parker, who comes in. He's got the big old Arkansas farmer beard.
Yep.
And it's just all of this, like, the thing that really bugged me. Every time villains show up, they look nothing like villains. Because they all have perms, and they have, like, the curly hair of porn stars from the 70s, and they all have mullets, and, like, you know, I've seen RoboCop, so I've seen, you know, the henchmen that look like they're in their 50s, and you're like, I don't know that you should be a henching anymore. But I every time any villain showed up, I was like, these are the bad guys?
The only one you can buy is Ben Gazzara, the main baddie.
Even him, I was like, this is the villain?
But
this tweed idiot is the villain?
He reminded me of a lot of wild Western villains.
Yeah.
Like the guy that hires the hired guns.
Yeah.
And he is that. I mean, he's the guy trying to get, like, the rancher off his land.
Yeah, no, this is still by all effects a Western.
Oh, absolutely.
In the same way that the new Roadhouse is by all effects a Western, this is also a Western.
Oh, absolutely.
You still have the guy coming in from out of town, and he's going to do his whole thing.
But did you get what I meant by... Not only are you a little more invested in the guy that runs the auto parts store, which was the...
I disagree. I thought that they were both exactly the same.
You thought they were the same?
I thought the bookstore and Red, I thought that they both fulfilled excellent elements to the plot that were basically the exact same thing.
I thought Red was a little more because Kelly Lynch was his niece.
See, I didn't.
So his love interest was more connected.
I don't see that. That to me goes back to that idea of, like, why do you need to be in love with this person to care about what happens to them? You just need to be a decent human being to see that something bad happens. And you want to make sure that that doesn't happen, especially if it happens because of you. You want to do something to try and evade that issue. And so that's one of the things I like about the new Roadhouse is that he's not in any way related to these people. They were just really friendly to him when he first came into town. And so he just doesn't want anything bad to happen to them. And then when something bad happens to them because of him, it pushes him over the edge. And it's like,
I definitely still appreciate the new ending. I like that better. Like,
that
happy
is more
ending's
fitting
fine.
than them
kissing in a pond.
I was about to
naked.
say, do not have sex in a swamp.
Yeah.
You Shreks. What the fuck is wrong with you? Get out. Why are you having sex in a swamp?
Because it's there.
That's terrible. I can't even begin to tell you why this is a bad idea.
Because it's the 1980s. You have sex in swamps.
Jesus Christ. I can only imagine what happened the next morning.
Oh, my God.
Good God. But there are elements of 89 that I like a lot that I wish they had brought in. I thought the whole car thing was really weird at first. I was like, what's going on? He has this really nice car, and then he goes and he gets this beater. And then the escalation of the car just being bashed. I was like, see, now this is great.
Yeah.
And they should have kept this because this is legitimately funny.
And they kind of started it, but then they went away from it.
They didn't really do anything with that idea. They never really touched it. I like the bar people here more than in the new Roadhouse simply because there seems to be more of a give and take with the characters in Dalton. Where, like, the new one, you have, like, the one woman who works behind the bar and the two bouncers and Jessica Williams, and that's, like, your entire crew. Here you have, like, an entire restaurant's worth of people coming in and out, and they are more than just, like, these faces that you see. Like, you actually get to kind of not know them on a name-by-name basis, but you do get to kind of get a feel for each of them, and especially how you go through and you weed out the bad ones. Like, I thought that was also a really interesting thing that they didn't do in the new one, where they were like, there are an element here that are detracting from everything that's happening.
And I did like that first scene where he's, like, firing everybody and they're handing out the severance pay. And, like, that was cool.
Yeah.
That was really cool.
And, like, I look at the guy that looked like Danny McBride. And I'm like, you're going to fire this guy? Oh, that's not going to go well for you. And sure enough, but here's the thing. there's some decisions towards the end of the movie that I did not understand. In the middle of the story, we're introduced to the niece/daughter of Brad Wesley. We're not really sure what role she has, but she is hitting on Dalton, and her brother takes her by the arm and pulls her out of the place. And when Dalton goes by their place the next day, she's all beaten up. And I'm like, oh, that's bad. No cowboy would stand for this. Nothing happens.
Yeah.
No, that is never addressed ever again in the entire movie.
Her character was one that when I was younger I loved, but I didn't love in recent times because she was obviously like, we need a pretty woman with massive boobs that we can just show her boobs.
And then there was
and that's what she was.
There was the weird thing with the stripper who wasn't the niece but looked a lot like the niece.
Yeah.
But couldn't have been the niece because there's no way that he would have done that. Brad Wesley, anyway, like he's making out with her, and like it'd be too weird for her to be in any way related to him. But you have this blonde stripper who looks so much like this other character that we do care about, who we never talk about ever again. Weird choices. Having a not insignificant amount of the henchmen murdered off screen.
Yeah.
Including a lot of henchmen that we had been, forced to hate through the narrative of the story. And they're just murdered off screen. You're just like, okay. And then he doesn't kill Brad Wesley. And we're supposed to be like, oh, good job, dude. You just killed like 6 people, but good job finally reining it in with the one guy that you actually does deserve to be killed by you. And just weird choices. That like they weren't bad, but they were just weird. The cops finally show up for the first time in the movie at the very end of the movie, and like we're told during the narrative that Brad Wesley has the police force in his pocket.
Yeah,
right?
he pretty much owns.
But
it's
like
very similar to the new movie.
The police never show up in the movie until the very end when they show up after he's been killed. And all the townspeople are like, we didn't see anything. Yeah. And like that's the end of the movie is where we didn't see anything. And everything, the good guys win and the bad guys lose. And I was just like, okay. And then you have the monster truck. We need to talk about the monster truck.
That was insane.
There's just a monster truck throughout a lot of this movie with no purpose. And like for like the first 2/3 of the movie, you're just like, so are these people just like 10-year-olds who think it's really cool to drive around in a monster truck?
Well, you got to remember, I know there are a lot of monster truck rallies nowadays that people go to. Back in the 80s, monster trucks were huge. Monster trucks in wrestling were bigger than, let's say, hockey, baseball. Like, they were Bigfoot of the monster trucks, which this truck looked like. I don't even think... It might have even been Bigfoot. Now that I think about it.
But that's the thing is that you would need it to be more iconic if that were the case.
Yeah.
This looks like it's just like a bunch of 10-year-olds. It looks like that scene in Big where he gets an apartment and just fills it with junk. It looks like a bunch of 10-year-olds got a ton of money and they were like, oh, we can buy a monster truck, dude. Like Tinker just got a lot of money and like, but like it just was so ridiculous. And then they finally use it as a monster truck later on to terrorize the town. You're like, okay. That's why there was this monster truck. But for so long, you're just like, why are these doofuses who are sneaking around in a monster truck? Yeah. What is going on with this?
I do want to shout out one of the doofuses, Morgan, who is the bearded bouncer who gets fired in the beginning and then comes back and starts beating him up.
McBride.
That's Terry Funk. He is one of the greatest professional wrestlers ever to have lived. Oh, yeah? And so to like him in the movie, it was awesome. Because I remember when I saw it, I was like, that's fucking Terry Funk.
He does throw a guy through a table at one point.
He does throw a guy through a table.
So it's not a bad movie. I think I still like the new Roadhouse more just because I think that the characterizations are better.
Yes.
And the script is a little bit tighter. There's just like they get rid of some of the bounce and unnecessary like kind of 80s element of the movie.
Well, and that's the thing with and that's the thing with the 89 Roadhouse. I know it's 89. This movie is the 1980s.
Yeah.
Like, it is a movie of its time, of its day, not only just the way, like you were saying, women are treated, the objectifying of women, the insane violence, the stupid one-liners like pain don't hurt and all that shit. Mm-hmm. This movie was an 80s fucking movie. And it's like, when you watch it, you're like, what were the 80s like? Put on Roadhouse. Yeah. Oh.
I need to go back and see because that was one thing that I hope that they did put in. I don't remember if they did or not.
What?
Was if he had his medical records with him.
He didn't.
I think that would just be like, that's such a cool move.
That was a really cool move.
It's just such a cool move to be like, yeah, I just go around with my medical records. Here's all the shit I've been through. No big.
It's Like, even that first scene, I do love the little things that they did. Once again, they did, the new movie isn't like a direct remake, but they have where he only drinks coffee when he goes to the bar. And he gets slashed on the exact same spot.
A lot of knife wounds.
Yeah, and it's like, I do appreciate the little things they did in the new movie.
He sews himself up in the same way.
Yep.
There's definitely a lot of nods while still being a fully different movie.
Yes.
Like the villain is very different in that movie. And the fact that the police are an actual force in the new Roadhouse, where they're an actual impactful part of the story. They tweak the story while keeping the essential nature of it. I also just think that I like Jake Gyllenhaal's performance more than Patrick Swayze's. Patrick Swayze's was maybe a little too cool to that point of just like, you can't... this guy is the quintessential blank face action hero, where he has no personality. And that the idea there is that you can put your own personality on this character and be like, oh, he's just like me because he has no personality. And so therefore I see myself in his blank personality. I felt that Jake Gyllenhaal had more of a cowboy feel.
Yeah.
And had more of that, he was cool, but in that way of like, man, he's cool. Not like distant, but like hip.
Jake Gyllenhaal was a real person to where Patrick Swayze was a caricature.
Yeah.
And that's really like, Patrick Swayze is Schwarzenegger in all the early 80s movies. And, it's like,
I think that
he's not a real person.
That is really what it comes down to, is quintessentially it really is just the idea that he is the best bouncer in the business, whatever the fuck that means. That is like, the entire movie is like that. And it's not bad, but that's how the entire thing is.
It's something I think if you are interested in action movies, especially old action movies, you kind of got to put it on the list with like Die Hard and all that. It's like, it's that kind of early. He wasn't a steroided person like Schwarzenegger and Stallone. He was like the transition to Van Damme and all that, to where it's like, all right, he's not just this big muscle-bound guy, but he's still ripped. Yeah. He still has the crazy, beautiful hair, and he rips dudes' throats out. And it's like, okay, so it's like the transition to what now action movies are. Yeah. So
it was interesting.
It was something. Yeah. I'm glad you saw it.
I did not expect it to take place in Missouri.
No, I didn't either. All right, so I'm going to bring up real quick.
Yeah, you got a few hitters here.
First thing is, I finally got poster frames for, so on my wall in my bedroom now is Star Trek 3, 4, 5, and 6. I still have to get 1 and 2. That's going to be like $200, so I'm not buying that anytime soon. But I have the posters up. They're all original from when the movies came out. They look amazing. So because of that, though, I had not watched 3, 4, and 5 in a very long time. Because that usually my go-to is Wrath of Khan and Undiscovered Country, because those are the two best by far, and my two favorites.
Yeah.
So I watched 3, and they all have different eye openings because it's been a little bit. 3 is a lot better than I remember. I always liked 3. 3, especially Christopher Lloyd, was really good. Some of the acting, I'm not a massive fan of the recasting. Savak from Wrath of Khan was Kirstie Alley, and she either didn't want to do it or they couldn't pay her enough, so they got Robin Curtis to play Savak, and not only in 3 but also 4. I don't think she was just. I don't know if it's just the way she played the part. She just wasn't really a good actress. Yeah, it was a little too. Like, there have been other actors who have done Vulcans and can pull it off a little better. But, like, I really enjoyed 3. And then I went to 4.
Whales Ho.
4 I had a fonder memory of. 4 and 5 had a swap for me. 4 I had a fonder memory of, but it did not age well. There are parts of it I enjoyed. Some of the fish out of water parts are kind of funny.
Yeah.
No pun intended with the whales. Beginning and the end, not that great.
It's rough sailing.
The probe looks like a Tootsie Roll with the ball sticking out of it, and that always kind of freaked me out a little bit. And like the ending, the special effects, when the whales and they save everything and the probe goes away and they're all frolicking in the water, it's obvious that they're standing in the middle of the ocean. Like, can you see Uhura? She's just like, It's like, you're not kicking or anything, dude. You're standing in the fucking... You're in a pool and you're standing up. Now, mind you, they were all in their, like, 50s and 60s when that movie was made, so it's, like, totally understand why that's... But it just didn't age too well for me.
Yeah, I always found that one to be too ridiculous. Like, that was... I remember watching Wrath of Khan, Search for Spock, and Star Trek 4, I think all in one sitting. I think it was just those three. And just being like, the decrease in quality is so steep at times, where like Star Trek 2, the entire thing, you take it seriously, even the silly parts aren't that silly, and you just like take it at face value, but it takes itself seriously, so you have to take it seriously. Search for Spock, because the premise is vaguely ridiculous, it kind of has that taint of like, oh, this whole thing is stupid, especially because I cared so much when Spock died, and now we're going to spend an entire movie bringing him back, and okay, this is the whole thing, okay, and he landed on the one planet that could rejuvenate him because space reasons. And then you have
it's money reasons.
The
second one did so much business that
that's really what it is.
Oh, absolutely.
No, but I do like Chris Lloyd in that. I do remember enjoying Chris Lloyd's performance. That was like one of the few things that I was like, this is a lot of fun. Yeah.
And a very unknown John Larroquette is his first officer.
Yeah.
He's the only Klingon that survives. He's the one at the end that Kirk says, "I'll kill you later." And that's fucking John Larroquette.
Yeah. So I just remember getting into 4 and being like, well, where are we going to go from here? And then it's time travel in Wales. And I was just like, oh boy.
No, the only pass I'll give it was 1986, so it's almost 40 years. It was the big thing then was Save the Whales.
Yeah.
And so you had Leonard Nimoy, who was just getting into directing, who directed 4, and they decided to
go all in on Save the Whales.
Go all in, and it was...
Yeah.
It was interesting.
This is part of that era when that was a whole thing. That was Hollywood's attempts, quote-unquote attempts, to get people to wake up to climate change and the need to change policies and things. I'm looking at you, Fern Gully, where the entire movie is a message.
Oh, Fern Gully's, yeah. But it had good intentions.
Yes, they always do. See, this is always the thing, is that they always have good intentions. And that's perfectly fine. I'm not going to give you a gold star for it if you have good intentions. You know, like, okay, so you intended to do something good instead of just make money. That's an admirable thing. That's great. I'm not going to give you like a bonus 10 points for it. And I'm just not. You're going to have a good movie while also having good intentions.
And I also want to point out something that I remember having this curious thought when I first saw it. Catherine Hicks, who plays Dr. Jillian, the doctor who's in charge of the whales. It's just so weird. She doesn't wear a bra throughout the entire movie. And it's like, she's like doing a tour for children, and her little sweater is like, it was, now mind you, I'm not saying it as anything. It was just a sign, once again, part of the times.
Yeah.
It was just it's a little weird. But it's like, I gotta remember 1986 was a much different world, much different time.
Well, you've heard the story of Princess Leia's bra.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Where George Lucas apparently said at some point that they don't wear bras in space. And Carrie Fisher's just like, the fuck are you talking about?
It's like, thanks, George.
Yeah, good job, George.
So then I go on to 5. 5 is still not good.
No.
Let me say that. But it had more moments that I enjoyed that I didn't remember.
I always mix up 5 and 6. 5 is
The Final Frontier, the one with Spock's brother, who wants to go to the center of the galaxy where he thinks God is.
Yes.
Sybok is the name of Spock's brother. The Sybok character, I liked. Mm-hmm. I liked his power that they gave him, where it's kind of like a Vulcan mind meld thing, where he can like tap into people's deepest regrets and emotions and have them bring it out. Mm-hmm. And by doing that, they feel relieved and almost get like addicted. It's like a cult. He's a cult leader pretty much. The thing that really struck me, and I know this has struck me before, and it really did it again. God damn, that scene with DeForest Kelley, who famously was the best actor on the original series. Like when he was hired, he was the most seasoned and professional actor. When Sybok is trying to relieve his pain and he has the memory of his father who was dying, and he ended up euthanizing his dad, only to find out like a couple months later that a cure was found for what was killing his father. But his father was in so much pain. That scene was so fucking good. Mm-hmm. And when I'm watching it, I'm like, God damn. And that's what made me sad about that movie, because it's like, there was so much potential.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was just Shatner's ego and he had never directed before. Like, the whole part in the beginning was climbing the fucking mountain. I'm like, dude,
I forgot about that.
It's so bad. It's so bad.
Like, before there was Mission Impossible 2.
There
was Star Trek 5.
And it was so, like, there's so many Shatner ego moments in this movie. And another shout out, the Star Trek 4 is the absolute best example of the Shatner wig. It is so, especially the final scene where they're getting admonished by the Starfleet for what they did in the third movie, where they destroyed the Enterprise and all that, but then they get the Enterprise back. His wig is so bad, and I'm watching it like, Jesus, like it is horrific. Like, you look at him now, you can tell he's wearing a wig, but it's really good because it's 2024.
Yeah,
but yeah, so Star Trek 5 still not good, but I don't know if I put it over 4, but they're at least equal right now. And once again, it's equal in not a good way.
Yeah.
But by 5 coming up to where 4 was in my eye makes that actually get a little better, because once again, there are moments in that movie that I enjoyed.
Yeah.
Naked Uhura dancing and singing. Don't know about that one. That was a weird decision.
I don't remember that scene.
You don't remember that scene?
No.
When they first land on, I think it's Nebulous 3, which is the International Planet of Peace, where their Cybok is holding the 3 ambassadors. Was it the Klingon, the Earth, and the Romulan ambassadors? So when the Enterprise land, they have to take a shuttlecraft because the transporter isn't working. And there are horses that they need to get to where the hostages are. So they need to distract the guys who have the horses. So they have Uhura standing on top of this like mound of sand with these massive feathers doing like a song and dance.
See, I remember the Futurama joke about this scene.
Yeah.
More than I remember.
But you're watching it like, what the fuck
is going on? What the hell is this?
This woman launched the careers of so many female scientists. She was so important that Martin Luther King told her to stay on the show. And now that she's in her like 60s, you're going to be like, take all your clothes off. Here's a couple feathers. Dance and move them over. It's like,
Jesus
dude,
Christ.
didn't you do her bad enough all those years you had her in a miniskirt on the Enterprise? She's like, that's why I appreciate what they've done in Strange New Worlds. It's like, she's a genius.
Yeah.
She's smarter than everyone else other than Spock, potentially.
She learns languages in a night.
Yeah.
Like, she's very, very...
She's very smart. Yeah. And it's like, the old Uhura and Nichelle Nichols, I love her. And they did her right in, Star Trek 6, The Undiscovered Country. They gave her a much more dignified, intelligent role. And they even have her say in the beginning of Star Trek 6 that she's chairing lectures at Starfleet Academy. So it's like, okay, that's Uhura. Her standing on a mountain naked to distract guys when you have phasers with stun settings does not make sense to me.
So fucking dumb.
It was so dumb. And
so
I'm watching
terrible.
it like, it wasn't just dumb, it was embarrassing.
Yeah.
It was so embarrassing. But so that was my Star Trek story. I got to talk about the quick MCU because once again, my son and I have continued our journey.
Remember, we still have to talk about Fallout.
So real quick though. We watched Homecoming. We're not talking about Homecoming.
No, Al. Yeah, you can't do this to me. You can't do this to me.
We have beat this dead horse enough.
No, we haven't.
Yes, we have. We're not talking about it.
No, we have to talk about it.
Nope, I'm not saying a word about it. We also watched Civil War.
You're a bastard and you know it.
I know I am.
Yeah.
Civil War. Once again, disappointing me.
Yeah, of course.
Goddamn, Robert Downey Jr.'s acting sucked in that fucking movie.
He doesn't hold up well.
So bad. Especially at the end when he realizes that Bucky killed his parents.
Yeah.
I was like, you won an Oscar, dude. I know you're better than this. Like, that movie above all else, other than maybe when he's recruiting Spider-Man, he was that charismatic, like Iron Man 1 and 2 kind of Tony Stark. But then when he's being serious, it's fucking bad.
See, I like him in his serious moments there. There are some where when he meets Alfred Woodard's character and then reports back to the Avengers, and he's like, "Oh, who is this? This is Dylan," and we fucking killed him because we dropped.
See, that was okay. I'm more talking about the ending. When I thought that was
a little much.
Yeah.
At the time, but I do still love the moment where he and Cap are talking, and Iron Man thinks he's getting through to Cap, and that Cap is gonna switch sides, and he's like, "And then what about Wanda?" And he just flips. He's like, "What do you want me to do?" And it's just like that. There it is.
Yeah.
That's it.
But it was so hot and cold.
Yeah.
But just the movie itself, once again, I was like, God damn it.
It's just a missed opportunity.
It so is.
Here's the thing: is that movie peaks in the second act.
Yeah.
The airport scene, you're not going to get any better than that, and they don't try to. And so the third act is fine. I still say it's the stupidest thing in the world where Tony has time to fly home to the East Coast and then fly all the way to Russia. Oh, no, he has to stop in the North Atlantic.
Yeah, that's right.
And then he has to fly all the way to Russia, and he does all of that in the amount of time it takes Cap and Bucky to get from Berlin to Moscow.
Yeah.
That's fucking dumb.
That is
It's
dumb.
fucking stupid.
It's so dumb.
And, there's just a lot of elements of that throughout the entire movie.
And even Sam calls out one element that I forgot is so fucking stupid. Because they're trying to cram this storyline into this short movie, the last thing you see of Black Widow before this movie was at the end of Captain America Winter Soldier, where she's telling the government to go fuck themselves.
Yeah.
And then the next thing she's doing is signing the Accords, and Sam calls her out on that.
Yeah.
He says, so you're going to go from telling them off to being on board? And it's like, you didn't have enough of the other storyline of Civil War to get her from that point to that point. See, she just gets to that point.
The other thing is that they should have, I know this was before Disney Plus, so this is impossible, but this would have made a better series. Than a movie,
fuck yes.
Where you actually have time to, and which isn't saying much because I'm looking at all of Marvel stuff, and like Moon Knight gets the closest to actually having like a sustained arc to it. Everything else is just dumb and bad. But like they didn't even give themselves enough of an opportunity. I always go back to, how does Tony recruit Peter when he doesn't make Peter reveal his identity? How is that in any way kosher with what's happening? That doesn't make any fucking sense with what's happening. The whole point is that identities are open. And Peter would be naturally, if he was the actual Peter Parker, which we know he's not, he would be totally opposed to that. That's why it's such a big deal when he unmasks in front of the media. And how big a deal? He has to make a fucking deal with the devil. I can't go into this again. Yeah. I can't go into this again.
No, and that's why we're not talking about Homecoming.
Yeah. This is why I want to talk about Homecoming.
We're not talking about Homecoming.
You need to at least give me something.
I'm not giving you anything.
Give me something.
We have to move on.
No. I'm not done with this.
But yeah, so of course my son loved both movies because I see Civil War as that turning point where they're starting to dumb it down a little bit, because you go from Winter Soldier, and that was like the apex, and then it starts to you have like Doctor Strange, which I liked. You have kind of a bump up with Black Panther, which Chadwick Boseman in Civil War, fucking phenomenal so again. And I'm watching him and I'm like, why did you have to die? You were the best part of the MCU after fucking everything else.
Yeah, no,
you had to fucking die.
He's so good. Every moment he just exudes T'Challa.
Oh my god! Right from the start.
Oh, it's so good. Just that moment where he turns and the helicopter is firing, and he just is unfazed. Yeah. It's just like, that's fucking T'Challa right there, man.
It's so good.
That's fucking him. That's the guy.
So good.
The chase. I still love the chase through Berlin and the tunnels.
Well, when him and Bucky are fighting, and neither one are in their suits.
Yeah.
When Bucky escapes after Baron Zemo. I don't even want to fucking talk about that. When he triggers him, that was fucking awesome. And it's like, he's not in an outfit and he's kicking ass. Like, it's so fucking cool.
He doesn't have the vibranium.
You can tell he has the juice flowing through him, though, and he's got the powers.
He still has all of his super strength and enhanced abilities and enhanced senses.
Fuck you, Baron Zemo. Fuck you, Baron Zemo.
I will never get over, because I remember seeing that scene where he drowns a guy in the laundry tubs, and the guy's mouth is above the top of the tub.
Yes.
And it's just like, so he can't drown.
Yeah.
It'd be physically impossible for him to drown because the water would start receding.
Wait, that was Falcon and Winter Soldier, right?
No, that's in Civil War. He's in the basement in Cleveland of that guy.
That's right. The guy who he crashes his car. Yes, that's
and he
right.
Steals he steals the notebook from him. to activate
That's right.
Bucky, and you're just like, but the guy can't drown.
Yeah,
It's impossible to drown. You didn't put him deep enough in the tub to drown.
So bad.
And I can see that. Yeah. I can see it right now.
So bad.
And like, you know, I do love stuff. I still love, this is the closest we've ever gotten to Clint Barton Hawkeye, where when he is rescuing Wanda, I just love that moment. Okay, we gotta go. That is so classic Hawkeye. That, and he gets grabbed and he punches Vision twice, and he's like, that's classic Hawkeye.
Yeah.
The only way it could have been better is if he has like a broken nose during the airport battle, so he has like the band-aid over his nose.
That would be cool.
Like fucking great stuff, man.
And I agree with you too, how at the end when he's in his cage, or not the end, well, kind of the end, when Tony shows up and he's in the cell and he backtalks Tony.
That's one of the best Hawkeye moments of all time.
It's so good.
When he calls him a futurist, like, oh, there's so many great moments that, you know, I waited for so long, and they did come in Civil War. I just do wish that they had nailed some of the other elements of the storyline. You know, like, obviously we can't do it, but one of the coolest things about Civil War is when the Punisher confronts Captain America and asks him, like, how am I different from you? I kill people. How else am I different? Like, tell me again about how I'm different than who you are. Because I'm a soldier who was pushed to do the right thing in his mind and would go to any extreme to do that. So tell me again about how I'm less than you. And just like, you can't do that because we haven't established the Punisher, even though apparently he's the one that runs over fucking Quarterbast or whatever his nuts is in Winter Soldier on the highway with the yellow truck. Anytime a yellow truck runs into anybody in Winter Soldier, it's apparently the Punisher, according to the Russos. So like, we'll go with that. We'll go with that. No, I just, I don't dislike Civil War, but it comes back down to that problem of so many Marvel movies of missed opportunities.
So many.
It's not bad, but it's just not as good as it could be.
Yeah, it was disappointing because you know I'm part of me rewatching these is I'm seeing if I was right about my initial thought of them or if I was wrong.
Yeah,
and I was kind of right about this one, and it kind of bothered me. Like I was hoping maybe I would see something different in it. Nope.
Can we talk a little bit about Homecoming?
No, I'm not talking. You can talk. I'm not talking about.
Nope. Out there and not have any conversation about what you thought about Homecoming on second watch. We've been doing this whole fucking parade this whole way through, and now you're gonna be like, no, but we're not gonna talk about Homecoming.
Let me say this one more time. Homecoming is what we thought it was. There's nothing different in my opinion. The only positive I really take is I loved the scene when Michael Keaton is driving Peter in his date.
His identity.
That is the only part of the movie that I truly love. And it's just pure acting, and Frogmouth doesn't really say anything. It's just Michael Keaton being a fucking great actor. And that's the only part. And when he turns and says, if you mess with my affairs again, I'll kill you. I'll go show my daughter a good time. It's like he knows what Spider-Man can do physically, but he doesn't give a fuck because he just is so goddamn mad that that's who's dating his daughter. That's the only part I liked about it.
It's a terrible movie. I like the Vulture suit. I think that's good.
I did too, but I also wish they could have.
Adrian Toomes usually comes up with his own tech.
Yeah.
Not for nothing. I know that you're doing a different take on Toomes. They kind of make him into like kind of a
dummy where he doesn't even know what gun is what. Oh, I thought this was the anti-gravity gun.
This one doesn't do that. I don't understand. No, and then I will never forgive them for the Shocker, where they took 2 swings at the Shocker with 2 good actors.
Yeah.
Good actors. Anybody who hasn't seen Upgrade, go fucking see Upgrade.
And the first iteration, I can't remember what's his name from Upgrade, who plays the Shocker the first time.
Darren Green something.
Something like that. That scene where he gets vaporized, he's actually wearing a very close-looking costume, like the jacket he's wearing.
Yeah.
Very close to what the Shocker's outfit was.
Logan Marshall Green.
And so when I saw that, I remember I was like, oh, that's fucking... And then they
kill him. And then they bring in Bokeem Woodbine, and he's going to be the Shocker, except that he's also not the Shocker.
Yeah.
Because, first off, 2 gauntlets. Let's start with 2.
Yeah.
Let's just start with 2.
It's 2 gauntlets.
And then you got to have the whole padded suit, because it's literally, you're basically setting off mini earthquakes with each hand. So you need the suit to absorb all that energy, so you're not doing what they did in Invincible, where the guy gives himself a concussion every time he uses his fucking powers, because It fucking that. It's so dumb.
It's
the
so
whole
dumb.
Washington Monument thing. Fucking terrible.
Terrible and dumb.
Just awful, awful garbage.
Yep.
I will say this on my short list of ways that I would fix. You did leave me something here, and I hate that it's here. But as long as you left it here, what the fuck has Liz Allen been up to? Let's go fucking Alchemex. Bring it back, baby. She wasn't Snap. She's been around the whole time. She's become an industrialist in this all time. If you're not going to give me fucking Norman Osborn or Harry, we can still fucking do Alchemex. You have an option, please, for the fucking love of God. But, like, we're not going to do it because Molten Man is a giant lava monster made by Mysterio. Urgh. Bokeem Woodbine should have been Molten Man. You get rid of Shocker. He's Molten Man. And he's her brother, canonically. And you get rid of Toombs as her dad because that makes no fucking sense.
Yeah. And it's going to sound like I'm ganging up, as always, and beating up on this individual. She's probably a wonderful person in real life. I have nothing against her personally. Zendaya fucking cannot act to save her life. I'm watching her. But even in this is like even more toned down from the other movies, to where it's like she's barely even breathing in half the scenes. It's like, are you?
And she's supposed to be Mary Jane Watts in The Life of the Party, except that she's not.
No,
she's just Michelle.
She's Michelle.
She's just Michelle, is a pointless character who's not interesting in any capacity.
But like I'm watching it, and I'm whenever I have these feelings about an individual, when I go back and rewatch their work, I give them an extra break because I want to understand what everyone sees.
Yeah.
And I did with this. I'm like, all right, I know what I'm getting into with her character, and I know, fuck. Like Betty Brant is on the screen for like 5 minutes, and I got more.
Don't even get me started.
No. I don't want to get you started on any of this. That's why I didn't want to bring it up. But it's like fuck, man. She had no personality in this movie.
It's a giant.
And I know she's playing a character that's not supposed to have personality.
Well, that's the problem.
But people have done that while still showing personality. You know what I mean? You can still. The personality of not having a personality is still something.
This will be my last thing on this, and then we can move on, because I've had my cake, and I really enjoyed it, and thank you for letting me have it. It tasted really good, and it's making my tummy happy as we speak. It's crazy to me that in the ubiquity of all the Spider-Man movies, of all of this, where everybody talks about how there's too many, and there's been too many reboots, and they're trying too many things, and now it's come all the way back around, where now you have all these versions, and so now it all works with the Spider-Verse and everything, even including the Spider-Verse. How, in 20-something years of making these things, have we not gotten one Mary Jane Watson who's authentic to the original character? Just, how have we done it? I just don't know how you can have this many iterations of these characters in this world and always not have Mary Jane Watson.
Well, let's think about this. Of all our criticisms for most superhero movies, what are the characters they consistently get wrong?
The female characters.
The female characters.
Yes.
That is right at the Mount Rushmore of every problem of every comic book movie, other than the original Superman with Margot Kidder as Lois Lane.
Yeah.
Fucking nailed it with that.
Yeah.
And then after that, all fucking downhill, man.
I still say, like,
maybe Pepper Potts, Gwyneth Paltrow.
The thing with me with Margot Kidder is that I'll never get over. Again, it's the time. It's a time thing.
Yes.
And they fixed it in most modern iterations. The idea that Lois Lane can't put together that Clark Kent is Superman.
Yeah, I mean,
is still the silliest thing to me. But anyway, we're not talking about that.
That's my only funny thing I've ever gotten from Jimmy Kimmel. Really, did you ever see the short he did with Henry Cavill and Ben Affleck where they redid that scene where they meet at Lex Luthor's party, and he just goes, he takes his glasses off, and Lex Luthor's like, "Oh my god, I didn't know." He goes, "Yeah, you're fucking smart. I don't know how you didn't realize.
How did you not realize?"
And it's like everyone, nobody knows that it's fucking him.
Yeah, but like she's one of the best reporters in the world.
Yeah, and
she works with the guy. I get it. You aren't looking at the things right in front of your nose, but like at the same time,
that's where they're a little too comic specific to a comic that came out in the 1920s or 30s.
This is what I'm saying is that in most modern iterations, Lois figures it out way ahead of time.
Yeah.
And or if you don't, you have that great Doomsday sequence where he tells her that he's Superman and then goes and dies.
Yeah.
It's great stuff.
See, now here's the thing though. I will say this, and this is completely off topic. It's more believable when you have a Superman to Clark Kent like Christopher Reeve than the Henry Cavill one. Because the Henry Cavill one is the exact same character with glasses on. At least Christopher Reeve hammed it up and made this like different haircut, bumbling and acting a fool, and it's like that makes it a little more believable.
I think it's All-Star Superman is the animated movie, but there's a movie where basically Superman has to save a shuttle from crashing into the sun, and in so doing he overcharges his molecules and becomes like Superman.
Okay.
All of which is to say that he is dying. And so he's going about his life knowing that he's dying and just trying to like solve his problems both as Clark Kent and as Superman. And when he's walking around the Daily Planet, the way that he holds himself, the hunched over nature, the way that he just is kind of like always insular and, you know, trying to seem smaller than he is. That's how you pull it off.
Yes,
is by somebody who's every function, everything about them. It's like that thing in Prestige where you have to have every little thing all the time has to be different.
I agree.
And I do want to also throw this out before we move on. I know Kirsten Dunst is Mary Jane. I'm not an idiot. I'm saying it's a terrible adaptation of the character.
It's not.
It's not Mary Jane Watson.
It's not Mary Jane Watson.
It's in name only.
Because the first introduction of Mary Jane Watson, where she opens the door and says, "You hit the jackpot, Tiger," is the like super confident.
Yeah.
I am this gorgeous woman. I know I am.
I was watching the old animated series again.
Yeah.
And there's an episode where he goes to another universe because they kickstarted the Spider-Verse way back in the 90s before it was cool. He goes to another universe and he meets another Mary Jane. And she literally has that line that Stanley wrote in about like, I got to go to the party because without me, there is no party.
There is no party.
And it's like, that's fucking
Mary Jane
Watson.
And it is. It's the confidence.
Yeah.
Like, that's Mary Jane Watson.
Yeah.
She is a confident human being.
Yeah.
All right, so we got to move on. We are going to finish talking about the final 6 episodes of Fallout, the TV series. So this will be like our series review episode, let's call it.
We're going to hit each episode a little bit, but just give our overall thoughts. We're not necessarily going to walk the plot.
So to me, as a whole, as far as the series. Oh, yeah, no, there's definitely going to be spoilers. I think this was a roller coaster.
Yeah.
It started strong. It plateaued, I think, in the middle. Like, the middle, like, 3, 4, 5 episode were good, but they were a little on the boring side. But then as soon as they got to those final few episodes, they stuck the fucking landing, in my opinion.
I think that I agree with you, except that I would say we can pinpoint the... it's rare that there's a shape to the problems of a show, but I'm fairly certain that the problems of the show are Maximus shaped and I guess by a larger degree, Brotherhood of Steel shaped.
And that I agree with. And that's when the show to me got back online, is when they put Maximus with Lucy in a shelter. And then his character story was part of hers, which was still the best.
But even by the end, there was an element of the last episode where I was like, you gotta be fucking kidding me.
Yeah.
This is how we got here? These are the circumstances that brought us to this moment? This fucking idiot? Yeah. Again with him? How is it still him? How, after all of this, with all of this journey and everything he's learned, how is it still him?
I am curious to see where they go with that in the second season, now that he's...
I guess gonna get a promotion.
He's an official knight now. He's not just faking it to make it. All right, so we got to go back. So the head is episode 3. This is where Maximus takes over Titus's armor, becomes Titus. He even starts calling himself Titus.
He has some issues with his mechanics. He has to go back to Philly after fighting the ghoul and everything that happened there. Meanwhile, Lucy and the ghoul are inspecting the waters.
Yeah.
And maybe doing a little light fishing. Or is it torture? It's hard to say, really, at times. All I could think every time...
the term gulper.
Yeah. I just love that every time they looked at the water, my Fallout insight kicked in. I was like, don't go in the water. Do not go in the water. Not because there's monsters, because it's so highly irradiated that you will die before you cross the fucking river. But I did... like this episode by and large. I like that Fallout, the way that they base the plot is always breadcrumb based.
Yes.
Where they give you a little bit more. And it's not like Walking Dead where they give you a little bit more raid in the last sequence and you're like, oh, now I gotta come back and find out what happens. It's like you get a little bit more every single time. You're like, oh, okay, and I'm gonna pull this string a little bit. Ooh, okay, and then that's gonna go there. Ooh, I didn't
And
know
the
this was...
breadcrumbs are the different games
Yeah.
that they're, because we're starting to get more storyline from 4.
Yeah.
Where we see a little bit more of the cryo freezing people and that's Fallout 4. And I was like, oh, okay.
And you have the ghoul storyline kind of takes
so
on.
Good. Oh my God, he's so good.
Yeah. But I do like episode 3. My issue with episode 3 is the reintroduction of Dingus number 2, and the reason why I can't say that Maximus is the entire problem is because you have Thaddeus, Johnny Pemberton, who I just hate. And like, first off, he has an extremely punchable face.
Yes.
Like just the most punchable face you've seen in a long time. But on top of that, he's equally as obnoxious as fucking Maximus. And you're just like, God damn it, man.
What do they call it? Not his scribe, his
squire.
Squire, yes.
But he doesn't know that Maximus is Maximus. He still thinks that it's Titus and that Maximus is dead. And it's just these two idiots being idiots together. And usually 2 idiots in agreement is funny. But this is just like, there's so many more interesting things that every time we come back to them, I'm just like, fucking with these idiots. I can't with them. I fucking can't. I want so many more things. I want to know more about this backstory. I want to know more. I don't like Norm or Chet. I don't like either of them. Their storyline is one of the most fascinating things of the entire series.
Yeah.
It's very rare to me where you have an entire storyline where the 2 characters leading it, the Scooby Gang behind it, I'm like, oh, fuck these guys. And so the storyline, I'm just like, fuck this storyline. Here, I'm like, okay, the 2 guys, it's super irritating.
Yeah.
Don't like either of them. But the storyline is so fascinating. I need to know what's going on.
And we can roll this into 4 because this is kind of like the Norm and Chet story.
Yeah.
Where they are starting to explore, was it vaults? They're in 33. They go to 32 and 30. They don't go to 31 yet. They just go to 32.
They go to 32 because 32 was the one where the Ravagers came through. And they're like, what's going on? And they go through, and it's bad.
It's fucked up.
It's really bad.
Yeah.
And just like all those shots where they're going through and you can kind of gauge without them telling you how all these people killed themselves and each other, and you're just like, fuck.
Yeah.
And like from there on, that's all the incentive you need to be like, but what is going on with Vault 31?
Yeah.
But like, what the fuck is going on with Vault 31?
And you get to see the interesting differences that Norm and Chet are both cowards.
Yeah.
But Chet is willing to be resigned
to his cowardice.
To his cowardice, where Norm is getting a little bit of a...
Norm can't sit still in it.
No, as much as he wants to.
He doesn't want to look, but he has to keep looking.
Yes.
And he just is inextricably drawn towards this mystery, and he just needs to know more. And he needs to know why no one else cares. And I that whole thing is just so fascinating to me, because the more you take it apart, the more you're like, wait a minute. And then by the end of the series, you're like, wait a minute, hang on a second, wait, whoa, hang on 1 second.
Well, and that's where the interesting thing is, because they find out that his mom's Pip-Boy was what let the Raiders in.
Yeah.
That killed everybody. And you're like, how is that going to play a part?
How did that happen?
Well, we find out how
that
in a fucked up way how that happened.
It takes a while, but we get there.
Dude, it's fucked up.
And then we do hit kind of, I don't want to call it the doldrums. This is more the extended backstory. Which can be a little slow. I found it so engaging that I didn't necessarily find it slow, but I could definitely see someone being like, oh, I don't care about what's his nuts, Cooper
Howard.
Cooper Howard. You know, I can see a lot of people being like, I don't fucking care about Cooper Howard. What the fuck is going on with this? But I every time they flash back to the past, I was just like, I have to take every little breadcrumb that's here.
Yeah.
Because I need to know what the fuck is going on, and this is going to be where I get all that information.
And what I love is this is where we see the robot with Matt Berry's voice.
Yeah.
But then 5 is where we understand where that voice came from, and you're like, oh, that's fucking awesome.
And he's talking about how he sold the rights to his voice.
Yeah.
And they threw in a robot for free, and he's like, this is the worst thing I've
ever done. And what I
done.
love is that this show is an R-rated show, because I don't know if I can listen to Matt Berry without him saying fuck. He is just, him swearing just goes like peanut butter and jelly. You gotta have it. Yeah. And it's so interesting. Like when it is weird that she gets sold by the ghoul.
Yeah, that whole sequence
to
is crazy.
harvest her organs.
Yeah.
But then she breaks out.
Yeah.
And it's that whole part was kind of weird.
That whole thing was like, because this is like the evolving of the ghoul storyline.
Yeah.
Where we get a little bit more of what's going on, where we meet the ghoul that's turning into a feral ghoul at the beginning of the episode.
Yes.
And you're like,
which was fascinating.
That was really
awesome.
interesting. Yeah. And so you're like, okay, so this is a thing. And we move on. Fingers are cut off. Reattached, given by you have a new finger from somebody else. You got a finger donor.
But see, and that's the thing, though. I didn't quite understand why, because it was the robot that attached her finger, but then was going to harvest her organs.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't understand why you did that. Why you did one to do the other.
Yeah.
That was the only part I was like, yeah, okay.
That's just a personal preference kind of thing,
Yeah, that
Steve.
could be.
The robot just really, really likes reattaching limbs.
Yeah, just loves it.
He cannot work until all the limbs are intact.
And I keep wanting to call him, because in Fallout 4, the name of the robot is Cogsworth.
Yeah.
And so I want to just keep calling him Cogsworth. So I'm just going to call him that.
I did like that whole thing with the drug dealers and the ghouls and coolers, I guess would be what it is. The ghoul coming in at the end and being like, oh, look at what I found.
Yeah.
So I do actually like episode 4 quite a bit.
It was good.
And then Doofus and Dongus get the head. That's all that happens with Doofus and Dongus, is that they fight the Gulper and get the head. Congratulations, I guess. We move on to episode 5, and this is where we start getting like the beef of the backstory,
which is so great.
Yeah,
I really love this backstory.
It's literally called The Past.
Yeah.
So it's Lucy and Maximus team up because Maximus is trapped in a suit after Thaddeus discovers or is told.
So Thaddeus is your bully, and he's an asshole and treats you like shit, and you think because he thinks you're somebody else, that by showing your face, he's going to be like, oh, this is going to be great.
This is great. We'll be friends now.
Fuck, dude. The only thing I liked about it was that him fucking up his foot. And that, I mean, it was a bad computer-generated foot.
We're going to get to some of the CGI late in the show because there's a few moments here where I'm like, things ran out. We ran out of something on this. And this is why you always finish the thing before you run out of money. Even if that means that the middle is the part that suffers. Because nobody likes a bad ending when the CGI runs out. The CGI bubble bath has dried out. No, so you have this whole thing where they're now traveling together and they're going to be pals. And he's still lying to her and calling himself Titus for reasons. And they find another vault. And Vault 4. Which is an interesting place.
Fuck, people with noses on there. You got a Cyclops running it as the vault.
Chris Parnell being Chris Parnell.
Which is so weird.
There was a moment there where I was like, okay, all right, okay. Can we...
See, and
this is totally not what we've been doing the whole time.
It isn't, but I give them credit for... It is the Fallout humor, where it looked like they were going to kill Lucy, but instead he's like, here's all these supplies, we're letting you go, and that's your punishment. And you're like, okay, that's kind of the humor of the game, so I got that.
Yeah, I'm thinking more when he has the sword and all the drama of like, I'm going to raise the sword, and then he's like sawing the bands.
Forever.
And I'm like, why'd you tie her up in the first place?
If you're
what is going on? It was annoying when you called her Goosey and checked her chart and was like, nope, your name is
Which we're actually
Goosey.
moving on to episode 7. That doesn't happen till then, but...
Yeah. No, but like, it's such a... Anyway, Vault 4 is such an interesting place. It has a cult. Gotta love a cult. Meanwhile, 33, things are progressing. There's an election, I think, in this episode. Is this... when
this is when Blind Al becomes the
leader
overseer.
And they go into 32 and everything's fine.
But then this is also where Norm, even though the election's going on, realizes that she's from Vault 31 originally.
Yeah, and all of the overseers are from Vault 31.
And you're like, And this is where the Fallout 4 connection comes.
Yes.
But yeah, it was interesting, and I agree with you. I don't like Norm, but I liked his storyline because it was the detective storyline.
Yeah.
Where it's like, it wasn't just a fetch quest. It's like him like, okay, I need to
And he's not a bad detective. He's not. He's not a charismatic detective in any way. There's a lot of Norm just kind of trepidatiously walking down a hallway and looking uncomfortable, and then sitting at a chair and being like, I guess I gotta do this, and tap, 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 tap. Okay, and then I'm gonna go here, and I'm gonna walk down this hallway very slowly and be like, is anybody here? And like, that's all Norm's storyline is, just like, you're there for the mystery of it, not for Norm taking apart the mystery of it. You know, and it's, having watched a lot of Fantasy High recently with a very in-depth ongoing mystery, watching them take apart that mystery, you're like, oh, this is engaging because you're watching the character take it apart. Here, Norm is not engaging in any way.
No, not at all.
He's very bland, and he's about as interesting as his age, which I can't gauge.
Yeah,
So, I don't know how fucking old he is. Sometimes he seems like a teen detective. Sometimes he seems like a 40-year-old man. I really don't fucking know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I have no idea.
You have that going on. You have more of the backstory with the ghoul, and we learn a little bit more about how his wife is working for Vault
I
Tech.
did love the interaction he had with the posse that kidnaps him, and then he's face to face, and he fucking just kills them all easily to break out.
Yeah.
That was fucking awesome, because that was a very Western, like...
There's a lot of Western stuff with the ghoul.
Oh, yeah.
I do have to ask, what's the point of wearing spurs if you're not actually riding a horse? But it's not a big deal. It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. No, I do like the pace and run of this, where it doesn't feel too... It gives you enough that you're interested. Where, like, you have that sequence where Lucy's like, so give me, like, a rundown on the last 200 years. And Maximus is like, what are you talking about? And she's like, I know when the bombs dropped and all these other things and, you know, whatnot. But, like, what, like, give me the broad spectrum, what I should know. And he's like, well, the bombs didn't drop 200 years ago. The bombs dropped when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And you're like, what the fuck are you talking about? And she's like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah.
And you find the new
my
California
God.
Republic and all this other stuff. And you're like, there's so much more here
Yeah.
than I even thought.
And this was my favorite Maximus episode, because I did enjoy him finding these creature comforts that he didn't even know ever existed.
Yeah.
And him explaining what sex is, where it's like a pimple.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I hear it explode. She goes, well, every time.
Yeah. Well, and she's so exuberant
Yeah.
about, like, why don't we have sex? We're just stuck in this room. Let's just have sex. And he's like, what are you talking about? How sex? Why would I would do that? That sounds awful. And I do like their relationship and their dynamic. It does become very Finn and Ray, or Poe and...
Oh.
Yeah, Finn and Ray.
Oh, Finn and Ray. Oh, absolutely.
Where you just have the doofus who's an idiot who keeps on doing dumb shit because he's so in love with this girl. And the girl who just kind of benignly allows these dumb things to happen.
But the difference, I think, with this is she's... acts like very in love with him. Like, she actually even asks him to come back and live with her and, like, marry her pretty much.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like, I'm curious to see what their, because, you know, they went in two different directions at the end of the...
Well, of course they did, because they had an entire sequence where they were like, okay, so what we're going to do is you're going to move in with me, and we're going to say that you're from Vault 4, and we're going to have this whole thing where I was supposed to marry another Vaulter, and you're going to just hang out at our place, and it's going to be great. And
that's like a rookie in an action movie saying, oh, it's my first day on the job, and then he dies.
And or an old man in an action movie saying, I'm going to retire tomorrow.
That's my last day.
You know, it's just like, oh, so you're not going to be together is what you're overall telling me.
Exactly.
No way that this fantasy you've created actually happens.
And we get the end of this. We get to see Howard back in the day again, meeting Moldover.
Yeah.
Which everyone's like, oh, so she somehow didn't age where he became a ghoul.
This is something
she just didn't age.
That isn't addressed. I would say this is a spoiler, but there's no spoiler.
Yeah.
It's never addressed. And if I had a complaint, this is one of the few where I was like, but what the fuck's going on with her?
This is one of the few storylines that actually wasn't addressed. Like, they did a good job, I think, kind of ending a season's storylines, getting ready for the next season, but hers was still a mystery. Like, exactly, did she make it to the cryopods? Was she invited?
When was, if she did make it to the cryopods, was she defrosted recently? When was she defrosted? That she's running the new California Republic? Like, there's just so many questions that I end up having about, like, but, like, hang on a second, but wait a minute. But wait a minute, that doesn't... Hang on a second.
Is this... I can't remember. Was 6 or 7 the episode when Thaddeus gets the injection?
I think that's 7.
Okay, that's 7. Okay.
Yes. 6 is... I really like the whole thing where he's the salesperson for Vault Tech.
Yes.
And that's kind of the end with everything. And he starts meeting the people of Vault Tech, and he's like, these people suck. These people suck.
And he knows there's something...
And his friends in Hollywood are all like, dude, this is... Like, I know you don't want to be a communist, and I'm not saying you should be, but, like... You should know what you're getting yourself into, because it's no good. And just the the back and forth and the style of it is so fascinating, where everything is the 50s except that it's not. We see it a little bit more later on when we see their cars.
Yeah.
But like there's just
like
elements...
his door that slides into that was fucking cool.
Yeah, and it just like a lot of stuff that's really fascinating to look at. And again, the production design is one of the reasons to come and watch this show. Yeah. The production design is outstanding in this entire show.
Just all the backstory stuff was so fascinating, and
like fascinating,
and they really made like they ended that stuff fucking so good,
and like so satisfactorily, where you're going down the list of like, oh, and then there was this thing, oh, but we know how that figured out, oh, and then there's this thing, oh, and that's okay, yeah, we know what that is, okay, and that's what this is, and that's what this is, and that's okay, yeah, you're actually, you know what, this checklist is pretty good set, this is pretty good, we've gone through most of the things that we needed to make sure we hit. I'm not terribly confused on almost anything. There's like one thing that I'm really confused. There's this woman over here. Is she a god? Like, what? Is she a ghoul but not a ghoul? What is this? What's happening?
Well, that's true too, because when they show Maximus, or no, when they show Lucy as a child.
Oh yeah, she's the same.
She's the same age.
Yeah.
So you're right. Did she get some kind of an injection?
Is there something going on? What's happening here? But we won't find out
till next season.
Well,
which luckily it got. They've actually already got season 3 approved, so that's how well the show is doing.
But it's going to be one of those things that we discover post-mortem.
Yeah, I think so.
And well, definitely, because she dies at the end of the season, and you're just like, I had so many more questions, and now she's dead. I don't know what to do with this. I don't know what to do with it. But I just love the feel and pace. Like, there's never a moment where the show feels boring. I agree with you here. This is where Maximus really kind of falls backwards in the plot, because this is where we really get into Vault 4 and all of the nonsense with them. And it's really about Lucy kind of going and trying to figure out what's going on and this mystery of Vault 4. Meanwhile, you still have the mystery of Vault 33. And I just found that so interesting because Maximus just fully falls into the background and Thaddeus is gone. And it's like, okay, so we don't have to fucking deal with the Brotherhood of Steel.
I do love the way they have it where the creature comforts are so incredible that they can brainwash you away from what your focus is.
Yeah.
So where he's like, you know, until he sees her drag by him at the beginning of the next episode, he doesn't give a fuck where she is.
Yeah.
He has popcorn. He has a TV showing the exact same thing, but he's never seen TV before.
Yeah.
And he has, oysters and all, and caviar.
And he's wearing a robe. He took a shower. I do love the moment where the people are like, oh, you really need to take like a hot shower and relax. And he's like, no, we don't. We need to go. And why do you keep on saying that about a shower? What is that? I'm just like,
this kid has never seen anything.
This kid's an idiot.
Which that also, I wish they would have gone deeper into that maybe, where it's like, okay, so the Brotherhood, did they bathe?
How do they do things?
Like how? Like
there seem to be so many elements that he has no concept of.
Yeah.
And so you're just like, okay, this is interesting. But like I found everything because by episode 7, this is where we start finding out some answers.
Yes.
And so you find out that some of the vaults had weird experiments going on. And that's why some of the people here are weird.
Yeah.
And mutated. And some of the monsters are mutated.
Which, this is something that I didn't know was part of... I didn't know Fallout lore very well.
Mm-hmm.
But all the vaults were different. And there were some that were experiment vaults.
Yeah.
And that's what Vault 4 was. Yeah. It's like, or that's what Vault 4 was. And I was like, God damn it, I didn't really know this shit. Like 31 wasn't 31, 2, and 3 being combined vaults was an experiment.
It's its own experiment.
Exactly.
And we get there in the end, which I found that scene, the Doctor Strangelove scene, was so satisfying.
It was so good.
It's so good. I just love, like, this is where we get Thaddeus turning into a ghoul.
Which was so cool when he realizes it. And he's like, oh, God damn it.
I think you're cool, Thad. Oh no!
And he couldn't go. He knows that if the Brotherhood,
he can't go back anymore. He's got to go. This again has some weird humor moments where you have Fred Armisen show up as a fiddle enthusiast playing his character from Portlandia.
Yeah, which was interesting.
And you're just like, okay, all right, this is fine.
It was just that scene where you're like, is that fucking Fred Armisen?
What's he doing here?
It is.
And because when I heard him on the radio, I didn't recognize it as Fred Armisen. But as soon as I saw his face, I was like, oh, that's fucking Fred Armisen. Why are you here? So many elements are starting to coalesce, and in a really satisfying way where it doesn't feel dragged out or too slow. You're just starting to get some pieces. So this is where we find out about Buds, and he goes to the communist meeting, and she's like, "You don't know your wife," And
which that was that eye-opening.
There's always a moment where you're watching these characters and you're like, what drove you? Because in the case of the ghoul, he has that moment where he's an actor and he's standing over a guy and he's like, I don't want to kill the guy in the movie. That's not how this character would be. This character's a man of honor. He wouldn't just kill a guy who's sitting on the ground. And the director's like, no, but that's the point, is that we want you to be dirty and dark and evil and just have a little bit of that darkness, even though you're a hero. And then you switch to the ghoul and you're like, man, this guy's all darkness.
Yeah.
How did he get here? Well, his wife ended the world. So that didn't help.
And then thinking about the fact that he's been walking the earth for 200 years as this creature. Yeah, he might be a little fucked up.
He might have been a little twisted by that. A little twisted.
I got a lot of vibes from his character more that we're seeing his background of the Leo character from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah.
It was very similar. It's like, you know, this guy used to be a headliner in TV shows, and now he has to sell products. And
he used to be a war veteran.
Yeah,
he
too.
fought in a war in Alaska against the Russians.
Wearing the battle armors.
Yeah, that's another element of this whole thing where all of the tech hasn't grown in 200 years.
Yeah.
So all of it is exactly the same as it was back in whatever time it was, because we're also not in any way officially told it's also not necessarily the 60s. It might be even later than it is today.
Yeah.
It might be 21 something when the bombs drop. They're very flaky on what date it is. I know that was an issue with some people, was that they didn't think the timelines matched up right because of the reveal at the very, 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 very end of the show. There's just so many elements of the storytelling that I'm just like, no, but give me more. Like, I need to know more.
No, exactly.
I need to know what the fuck is going on. I need to know where all this is coming from. I think this is where we go into Vault 31. This is Norm
enters 31
around,
and he sees
a brain in a jar.
Which I just brought this up last week where it was like
Futurama.
There you go.
And it turns out, funny story, the idiot from way back that irritates Cooper Howard to no end, he put his brain in a jar to make sure that he could oversee his own personal project, which was supposed to outlast any other attacks against capitalism simply by just waiting it out.
Yep.
And we find out that Vault 31 is full of cryotubes, and every person came straight from the source. They all have been cryotubed, and they're going to be thawed out and given positions of power.
Not only, and I love how they made him, you know, he's this head in a jar, but he's so incompetent. He keeps bumping into things, and he's trying to inject Norm, but he can't because he can't reach him. And it's like, that was awesome. Like, that's the humor part that I appreciated. Yeah. Because you're like, oh, he's going to get him with the syringe, and he goes off to the side.
Come back here.
Come back here.
Come back here and let me inject you.
It reminded me a lot of John Cleese in when he gets his arms and legs cut off in Holy Grail. He's like, I'm going to bite your knees off.
Bite your kneecaps.
Same damn thing.
Yeah.
And then you find out the Moldalver, the whole part, that they bought her technology for cold fusion and then just scrapped it.
And, well, proprietized
it, which they're not, and it's like you learn more of the shit.
The dark secret is that Vault-Tec was a big enough business that they were invested deep enough in the end of the world that they had to make sure the end of the world happened. And that's the dark secret at the heart of Fallout, is that Vault-Tec this whole time has been working endlessly to try and bring about the end of the world, and then it just keeps on happening over and over and over again, because once you switch it on, you can't switch it off.
And I did remember going back now, I'm fairly certain, in Fallout 3, I guess it never registered to me, when the first town you go to in Fallout 3, there's an unexploded bomb in the middle of it, and it does say Vault-Tec on it. And you're like, oh yeah, they are the ones that actually bombed the world, because there were peace talks that were going to go ahead, and they would have lost all their money. And once again, it goes back to capitalism and money, and they're like, oh no, we got to bomb everything.
And then we get to episode 8 where we actually see the war room, and they're going over like, listen, if you invest in Vault-Tec, we'll give you vaults to do whatever the fuck you want with. We won't care. We won't look. We won't check. We won't tell anybody. You do whatever the hell you want with the innocent people that are buying their way into these vaults, and you can go to. We now know why she kept on referring to them as one of the good vaults. And I was like, oh.
And I do love. They didn't fall in that cliche where he bugs her Pip-Boy, Howard, to listen in on her conversation. Thanks to Moldova, she gave him this bug. And it looks like he's not going to do it, and then he gets in a position where he does it, and then it looks like he's not going to follow through, but then he actually follows through. And it looks like she might figure out that she's bugged because she says there's something wrong with it.
Something wrong with it.
But then you realize she doesn't, and then just gives away the whole fucking thing, and you're like, God damn!
Wow.
Dude.
And that sequence.
That was so awesome.
It's a great sequence. Made only a little worse by some pretty crippling de-aging.
Oh, you're talking about Kyle MacLachlan? Yeah. But I did love Walter Goggins Howard, just the look of terror and horror on his face the whole time. Kyle MacLachlan, I can't remember his character's name, the overseer.
Overseer Hank.
Hank is just like telling him how much he loves him in his movies and stuff, and he's still listening to his wife in the look, and I was like, dude, that was so fucking amazing.
That sequence is going to be on a CGI People React.
Oh, yeah.
Because the dead eyes on Kyle MacLachlan were pretty tragic.
That was pretty bad.
It was pretty bad. There was just a lot of like, oof, and this is how it turned out, huh?
Yeah.
Yiga.
And it's like,
great.
Dude, you already made Moldova not age, so it's like, why couldn't you have just maybe put a little makeup on him or something and just
him slightly, put him in like a wig,
because he doesn't look that. I mean, he still looks great.
He still looks good. He's still Dale Cooper. He's not bad. He's put on a little weight, but that's all. You could have easily just had him be the same person.
Yeah, exactly.
Or do what you did with Betty, where we see Betty as a younger person, but it's clearly a different actor.
Yep.
And you're just like, oh, okay. So now you have, Hank walk in, and Hank is some 18-year-old schmuck who's just trying to work his way up the ladder. And it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, I'll let it pass because the scene was so...
It was
so
scene.
powerful. It was such a good scene.
And so, but like surrounding all of this, you have the fight between Moldova's forces, her forces, and the Brotherhood of Steel. And the Brotherhood of Steel is here because Maximus came up with another great plan.
Yeah.
And Maximus's great plan is that he's going to give Lucy the head so she can go and run to Moldaver. Great, cool, fine. And he's going to take this other head home and give it to the Brotherhood of Steel. Okay, no problem. And then he's going to be found by the Brotherhood of Steel, because of course he is.
Yep.
And then he's going to lead the Brotherhood of Steel to where Lucy is so that he can save her from the Brotherhood of Steel.
Well, see, the only thing I didn't like about that, because I understand why he would go to Moldover, because he still doesn't know what Lucy finds out, and he thinks that she's still the bad guy.
Yes,
and he's going to save her.
He can't possibly look at this as the best way to handle the situation.
Well, no, because he's an idiot.
But this is my point, is that he's such an idiot, and it has such huge ramifications.
The thing I didn't like was, so he shows up with, obviously, the wrong head to trick them. They know that he maybe not killed his knight, but
something
didn't
happened.
help him, and then took his identity, and then did something to his squire that was sent to him.
Mm-hmm.
And all he says is, well, I can take you to the actual head. And they're like, oh, well, he can lead the...
Yeah. Well, Dane stands up and says, no.
the Dane thing, it's like... Dane hasn't shown that they were anything.
No. Dane is a nothing character to us. Dane was presented as this character who is everything Maximus wants to be but never can be. And then disappears from the plot because we decide to follow Maximus. And then we come back and Dane's like, yeah, I did it to myself because I was scared to go out. And I guess we're just going to go out into war now. And that's going to be Dane's storyline, is Dane's going to be the one that crowns Maximus as the killer of Moldaver. And with no evidence to show that that's actually a thing. And that's going to be the Brotherhood of Steel storyline. They're going to ruin the new California Republic and do this whole war that doesn't need to happen and destroy Philly. Just because fucking Maximus is an idiot.
Yeah.
He's just a fucking idiot. Like, if it had happened for a rational, reasonable reason. But it doesn't. It happens because he's a fucking idiot.
And I do want to tell a little bit of my appreciation of the handling of the character Dane. We didn't really talk about Dane in the previous... just briefly. Like, this is what I appreciate and what I wish more shows would do. Because this is a trans actor.
Mm-hmm.
But what they're doing is they don't make a deal of it because they're saying, in this future, sex isn't really anything.
No, exactly.
And like to the point where he doesn't even know what sex is. He thinks it's like a zit popping.
Because of course it wouldn't be a big deal, because why would it be?
And so this is where I appreciate, okay, so this is where you're going to put in an actor. And I think they did a great job. And it's like, but you're not making a big deal of it. That to me was
They never
great.
even talk about it.
They never talk about it.
They never,
and it's like,
they never bring it up. Nobody mentions anything about it.
And I appreciate that part of the storyline. I love the fact that they make sex a commodity, really.
Yeah, that's really what it is.
And it's other than that, it's a throwaway thing.
And they tell us that right from the start. Where Lucy's like, so I haven't had this many sexual partners. I don't have any diseases. My my reproductive organs are all in good nick. She just goes down this laundry list of like reasons why she should be a breeder, and it's just like, this is the world they live in. This is
and then ask them,
life.
what's your sperm count? I need to know, because it's like we need to just it's something that is done to create more of our species.
Yeah,
that is it. It's not for fun. It's not anything we need to just dwell over, and I love that about it.
And especially when we look at the whole experiment of 31, 2, and 3.
Oh my god.
Where that, of course, they're worried about reproduction and all these other things, and they're focused on that because we find out the dark secret of 31.
That scene where the woman gives birth to the creatures and they start eating her, I was like,
oh my god. That was so fucking...
That was so fucked up.
Jesus Christ.
I was glad that it was like a dark black and white picture, because I'm like, I can't even stomach what I'm seeing right now.
I don't even want to think about what I'm thinking about.
That was messed up.
Yeah, no, a lot of the weird science Mojo Jojo is bad.
That was fucked up. That was so fucked up.
But like again, the stuff with Steph, because Steph is also one of these 31ers. Yeah. Which means Steph is somewhere in the past.
Yep.
And you're just like, this reframes everything. Every line of dialogue that Steph has had up until this point just fully reframes it.
And some of the looks she gave to Norm, that makes more sense now. You're like, okay.
Yeah. Well, and like, why would she want Norm to start picking at this scab? What's the point of that? What does that achieve for her? And what happens to Bud's buds when 32 falls? How does that affect Bud's buds? Like all these different things of just like, oh, now I know what the game is. Now I'm going to start looking and seeing what the strategy is behind each of these people pulling the strings on things. I did find it very funny that Coop pulls up in this bright yellow car and is like, oh, I'm going to go teach Janie how to do roping tricks, and then sticks around. And I'm just sitting here like, if your wife ever looks out at the parking lot, like even once, like even one time during the entire day, she's going to see this bright yellow car. And
well, he goes to her office.
Coop never left. Weird. He said he was going to go.
He goes to her office, and I was kind of curious what he was going to say to her if she came back.
But that never happens. We never get there. We do get a few reveals. The Ghoul's family in some capacity is alive, and
which
he's looking
you got to
for them.
assume they're in Vault 31.
Maybe there's another vault that has some kind of cryo.
Well, that's true too.
Because that goes back to to Fallout 4, where you're looking for your child and your spouse.
Well, the spouse dies.
Oh, that's right. Yes,
she gets shot at the beginning of Fallout 4, but the son, his son's kidnapped. But yeah, no, I love that. I don't know if it's because they got oversexed, but what's the woman with the eye patch again? I can't think of her.
Oh, Steph.
Was she icing her crotch?
She was at one point.
When Norm came in, I was like...
Oh, it's because she just gave birth to a baby.
But I thought that was, like, that had been a while. Like, at least been a couple weeks.
Days.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because at first I'm like, is she just having, like, a lot of sex with this other dude?
Because they say that Lucy's only been gone for 2 weeks.
Okay. So that made... Cause that was weird, and I wanted to ask why.
That's what I took from it.
And then I do love when Lucy finds Moldover and finds her mother, who is a feral ghoul who is very decomposed.
Oh, yeah.
And you realize that Hank is the one that bombed.
Yeah.
Which is so fucked up.
Yeah.
You're like, holy shit, her dad was the one that bombed
Hank said, it's my way or the highway.
Yeah.
And she said the highway. And he said, fine, fuck you, and bombed the entire city.
That was a reveal.
Yeah.
That was an absolute fucking banger of a reveal.
Yeah. No, I really like the pacing on everything here on out. Because, like, you can argue, like, there's a lot of shots of Ella Purnell crying. And there's a lot of shots of Kyle MacLachlan screaming, you gotta understand, don't listen to her, blah blah. Like those moments I can see somebody saying like, oh, this is going on a little too long. I thought that they were paced out really, really well.
Oh, I thought so too.
And same as the Doctor Strangelove conversation, where it's just like the pacing on it the entire time. You're like, because you've been dying for answers for so long. You're finally getting them, and it doesn't have that sense where some things where it's too slow.
Yeah.
And so the answer is given and you feel like you missed it because it was so slow that you're like, wait, what was the answer? And it's not so fast that it's just kind of like flung out there and you're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Hang on, what is going on?
And I will steal a Michael Jackson term that he used to use in his concert. They let it sizzle just the right amount. And it was just like you're saying. There's such big reveals. You can't do it too fast.
No.
You need to let it live and breathe. You need to see the reactions of the other people. Like Hank's reaction when he hears his wife was everything. Yeah. That was everything in that episode. And if they would have cut that, it would have taken away from the whole thing.
Exactly. Yeah. It takes that level of drama and that whole storyline, which then feeds into the entire world of the rest of the story so directly. That's like now all of this has stakes. Having not introduced all these different corporations. So like we know some of them. We hear about Robco when we meet Cogsworth or the Cogsworth equivalent. Then there's like these 9 other companies that are also bidding in on what's going on. You're just like, okay. We didn't meet any of you guys. I guess not all y'all made it 200 years. So, but like they don't hold your hand, but they do give the story a very satisfying reveal at the end. Even the moment where the ghoul's like, there's always somebody at the head of the lion, and you know he's gonna go off and find who's really pulling the strings. And it's like, oh,
dude, I can't wait to see him and Lucy as a road trip movie.
It's gonna be
That's
good.
gonna be so fucking good.
Him, Lucy, and Dogmeat.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And
I forgot Dogmeat's still there.
I do love that the thing that pushed Coop over the edge was that he wasn't allowed to bring his dog into the vault. And he was like, no dogs in the vault. Well, this is bullshit.
Yeah, who made that decision? Well, we did. What did they say? There wasn't enough resources.
It's a resource management issue. And he's like, "What? Okay, but what else are you going to do without asking anybody first?" And that's where he starts saying, hang on a minute, wait a minute. Dude. And what is the thing that pushes him over the edge is when he's sitting with his dog and he is just like, nah, I gotta know.
Yep.
I gotta know.
It's so
and
good.
I love that moment where Dogmeat lays her head on his lap. And he's like, you're not him, Dogmeat.
I know. That was so good.
It's so good.
The when you really think about it, it's been over 200 years and he still has that affection for that fucking dog. And then he's like, God damn it.
Animal lovers it's a powerful love, man.
It really is. But yeah, no, I really, the ending wasn't 100% perfect, but I think they really stuck the landing. And overall, I give this first season, I mean, I would have to give it a solid A.
I would give it a solid A. I think
it was really entertaining.
I think what it really makes me want to do is what I usually do on a deep dive after I watch like a DC movie where I'm not super familiar with the character, where I go on YouTube and I look up all the lore of all the Fallout stuff, and I'm like, what did they change? What did they not change? What are people angry about? What is as I've been referring to, the Master Chief's helmet of this series? Is there one? I thought that there were 2 moments at the end that I liked. Well, there were 2 things at the end. One that I liked a lot, one that I thought was very silly. When we see Kyle MacLachlan in the Brotherhood of Steel armor, the power armor.
Yes.
I was like, this looks ridiculous. This looks so stupid, but whatever. And he flies away. And you're just like, okay, whatever. And then he shows up at this place and you're like, what the fuck is this place? And you're like, is it Seattle? Because it looks like it has the Space Needle. And the credits start rolling and you're like, okay, that was a good season. And the final reveal at the end of the credits is New Vegas. And you're like, oh yeah. Oh, okay.
And that's the thing. Like, I never played Fallout 1 and 2 or New Vegas, but things I've heard about people who are massive fans who have played those games is there are so many little things from all those games put in these, which just like that's whoever did the set design on this show.
The design on it is immaculate. We were talking about the design for the Transformers 1 and how bad it is. This is something where the design makes everything else better. Yeah. By being so good. Like, one of my only real complaints is that there isn't a Deathclaw. There's a lot of gulpers and no Deathclaw. We see
that was the reveal. You see that. You see the head.
Skull. But we don't see an actual Deathclaw. And I was like,
next season, we're getting fucking Deathclaws.
It's coming.
Oh, it's coming.
They gotta save something for the trailer.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. I think this is a solid A. It could be an A+ if I go back and find out that all the lore is authentic to the games and they didn't change that much. Then it goes right to an A+, A++ for me. Because I was so entranced by it. Yeah. And as much as I hate Maximus and the Brotherhood of Steel storyline, and how there's no causality to those actions. It's just a dumb idiot doing dumb idiot things, and it has these terrible ramifications. That's also kind of the world of Fallout.
Yeah, it really is.
And so, like, it kind of plays into everything, even as you're sitting there being like, you stupid fucking moron.
Yeah.
If you just didn't do anything, everybody's lives would be better. If you just did nothing, if you were still on latrine duty, everybody's lives would have been dramatically better.
He really is like the Ryan Reynolds from Fall Guy. He's the NPC who's kind of becoming part of the story.
See, I think they're all kind of players in their own way, where Lucy is one game and the Ghoul is another game. And Maximus is just like the guy like me who doesn't know jack shit about the world, doesn't understand any of the physics of it, but sees the really big, cool armor and is like, I want that.
Yeah.
I get that. I've been that guy.
I do say, is it Ellen Parnell?
Ella Parnell.
Ella Parnell. She has done a better job than any actor I have seen so far in bringing a video game character to life. Even the Last of Us ones. She brought a Fallout main character to life better than I could have ever imagined.
And like a character.
Yes.
Like that's the thing about Last of Us, is that Last of Us, these are characters that are established. We know who they are. We know how they should act and how they should be. So if you get it wrong, you can immediately tell. This is really just like you went into the character creator, you made Lucy McLean, and this is what came out. And as she grows in the story, so do you.
Yeah.
And it's just like her perspective. Like, I love her catchphrase as okie dokie.
Okie dokie.
It's just so good every time she says it. And it's just like, of course, you get the badass okie dokie at the end. And all I could think of was like, this would be in the Simpsons trailer for this show.
Oh, absolutely.
This is a little hammy, but I don't care. But I really love this show.
That's so good.
And she is, just as important as the design elements are to getting this right, having her be as good a character at the core of everything that happens is so important, and she kills it the whole way through.
Oh, absolutely.
The whole way through.
And watching her blind optimism slowly start to turn.
But never go away.
And it never goes away.
She's still at the end. She still looks at the world in a way that is uniquely her own. And even after everything she's seen and been through, even then.
Which I appreciate that, because it shows that she has been this way her entire life. So even 2 weeks of her out in the wild seeing all the shit is still not enough to completely deprogram her.
No.
Which is reality. That's realistic.
Yeah.
And, we see other movies after 2 days, it's a different person.
Yeah.
Where it's like her, it's like, no, this is still her.
That's one of the only things about her relationship with Maximus. And even that's not unrealistic, because she is put in this headspace where she sees a man and she's like, oh, this is a resource. I can use this for things. And things that I want in my life. And, because I was going to say, you could argue that falls into that, like, 1940s, like, we just have to have a love interest. And it doesn't matter if it's two people that have known each other for less than 48 hours. They have to love each other, like Romeo and Juliet. And so you could argue, like, there were moments that kind of hewed a little close to that. But, again, that kind of plays into her character, too, where also him being a lost little puppy. Like, that's another element of her character that she would be drawn to. And you get that by the portrayal. It's a really strong performance. Yeah. And I would love to see her nominated for something.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I think it's worth it. I think she does a great job here.
And I hope they don't fuck it up. The positive is it Jonathan Nolan? I think it's Christopher Nolan's brother. He's the one that is the writer and directed the first 3 episodes. He's kind of the showrunner of this series, and I really hope that he continues, and it's not one of these, oh, we're changing showrunners and all this, because it's like, this first season was so perfect. I really hope they continue it and continue to stick this landing, because it's like, it very easily can turn into Halo.
Oh, without a second thought.
Yes.
It can just run right off the road.
Exactly.
I've seen that happen so many times.
And it's like they could do 3-4 seasons. Don't overdo it. This one, I think, is a series that they could overdo it. Do 2 to 3.
I would say 3 to 4. 3 to 4 seasons. I think is as much as you're going to get out of it.
Then end it. You'll get everything you need.
Yeah, call it at the right time. This doesn't need to be Game of Thrones where we're going to go 8 seasons.
And fuck it up.
I think you could, but I don't think it would be good after 5 seasons. I think
agree.
you would have diminishing returns.
I agree.
My last note that I wanted to give on this, because I can't help but take a parting shot at Disney.
Okay.
Because as much as I love them, I also want to throw apples at them every once in a while. Every episode is 60 minutes.
Yeah.
And the last episode is 60 minutes. And the last 2 episodes don't suddenly go down to 32 and 30 minutes apiece. And you're just like, what the fuck happened?
And there's some episodes that are like an hour and a half almost, hour 15 minutes.
There's a lot of content here. And that's one of the reasons it's so satisfactory is because it takes its time and it goes through and it's paced out right. And you don't have this dumb, quick ending, which just like flash in the pan, like we got to get it done. And you look at the last episode and you're like, man, I've been feeling X way about this series. And then you see that the last episode is 32 minutes long. And you're like, well, fuck me, I guess.
Yeah.
Because every other episode has been more than 40 minutes, but I guess fuck me, right?
Fucking Secret Invasion.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I agree. Hopefully, it'll never happen. But other streaming sites that make content like this see that you need to tell an hour-long story. I mean, we've seen it with 2 of our favorite things now, Strange New Worlds and this show. Both hit an hour, and they're both great.
It turns out, funny story, the past 50 years of television still holds true.
Yeah.
You either have a half-hour comedy or an hour-long comedy or drama. Having a 45-minute thing it's nothing. No. That's nothing.
Especially when you're trying to tell an intricate story. You need to have the time.
You need to take the time and pace it out well.
And if instead of doing 12 episodes, you do what they did. 8-hour-plus long episodes. So what's that end up being? It's like 4 feature-length movies that you have here. That's perfect.
That's great. That's all we want.
It's almost like Doctor Who back in the day when that's how they would do it.
Another hour-long show.
Hour-long show.
Every episode's an hour long. There are some episodes that are weirdly 40 minutes for some reason that have extra commercial breaks in them. Disney, I guess the thing that I'm most mad about is that not only am I disappointed, but now I have to look at Jeff Bezos and be like, look, children, Bezos can do it.
Let's forget about that.
All
right, folks. That's a good way to end episode 136 of Nerdpod Generations. Once again, episode 136, meaning 135 past episodes. So please go to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or go to nerdpodgen.com, and you will find our website with links to Spotify, to YouTube, to our YouTube channel. So make sure you go like and subscribe. For some reason, thanks to Apple, I can't put a link to Apple Podcasts, but if you have an Apple product, go to Apple Podcasts. You can subscribe to our podcast
it's
there.
It's also technically there.
Yeah, it's there too.
I mean, like, me and you have various feelings about Apple.
Yeah.
Me more so than you, but yeah. No,
and if you go to our website, we do have different pages for our individual things that we do. Al's. If you go there, there is a link to your other website.
JutsomStudios.work under the Bronx Division tab.
There's a link right underneath this picture for that. And then mine, I have some links to some of the works that I've done. So please go back. And there's also a place to contact us and let us know about the shows. It'll email us directly. Let us know what you think of the show. Let us know if you have a topic.
Yeah.
Just give us
anything
feedback.
You'd be interested in. Anything that we've gotten wrong. Anything that we've overlooked. Yeah. Hey, listen, I'm always looking for people to tell me why I'm wrong about Homecoming. I haven't found a single person yet that can tell me why I'm wrong. But maybe it's you. Maybe you can be the first.
I doubt
Who the
that.
fuck knows?
I doubt
Who
that.
the fuck knows, right? I'm not in any way hard-edged on this.
No, not even a little bit. Not even a little bit.
No.
Well, folks, we will see you next week for episode 137. Not quite sure exactly what we're going to talk about yet, but it'll be
97
great.
with our great logo made by Kortney Howell.
So good.
With the theme song by Brendan Williams and James Connelly.
So good.
And until next time, I'm Alfred Jutsom.
And I'm Steve Taylor.
Have a good one, friends and enemies.
Peace out, folks.